It is a wonderful time on television, and thanks for joining us on our program. Your program, I want to say, African Discourse on Independent Television. Of course, you know that on this show, we look at a whole lot of issues on the continent of Africa, and of course, how it borders on you as an African, and of course, how it borders on me too as an African. My name is Evan Sudokoge. You're welcome to the program. Well, today on the program African Discourse, we are going to be looking at the issue of irregular migration in Nigeria and of course in Africa, on the continent of Africa. You and I know that there's been a whole lot of problem to the extent that the African Union has tried its, its very best, so to say, and of course the United Nations has also tried various policies, various methods, and various programs to ensure that these promising Africans that take the risk of migrating to the Western world, migrating to Europe through the Mediterranean Sea, that they are kept home, back home on the continent of Africa. But good enough, we have some very good Africans that have decided to take the bull by the horns, no matter the economic situation, and of course, no matter what they are going through back at home, but they still look inward, and they see how they can make themselves very, very important, and make themselves useful for themselves and useful for their nation. Well, to look at all this today, we are so privileged to have Mr. Paul Okungbowa. You may call him a CEO. I decided to bring him on the show today because he's probably one of those Africans that has decided to stay back at home, that has decided to make a whole lot out of nothing. So we may probably be getting insights from him this afternoon, the way he has done his own, so that other Africans out there, African youngsters out there that is tempted, that looks at it, that not until he passes through the Mediterranean to go to Europe, that he cannot make it in life. Mr. Paul Okungbowa, you're welcome to this program, African Discourse.
Thank you, Evan, for having me.
All right.
Good afternoon, viewers.
All right, so perhaps as we just do more insight on this show, we're going to be seeing some videos, some images, so that you really get to understand when we say this kind of migration is irregular. Now, Mr. Paul Okungbowa, let's get an insight. When we say irregular migration in Africa, on the continent of Africa, from your own perspective, what is your insight? How do you look at it?
Well, as the word would imply, irregular, it's come from the word irregularity, which would suggest a deviation from the normal process, as it were. There is a regular migration program. There's an irregular migration program. Africans have tended to take the shortcut that is not short in the long run by acceding to the irregular migration, because the irregular migration will call for a process of documentation that they may be found wanting or come short of, as it were. And most of these Western worlds, even though they're looking for technocrats and looking for experts in certain areas of human endeavor, would want to select the best of Africa. And these young people who would take this risk are not exactly schooled enough to understand that the process abroad, the regular process abroad, is still open for non-skilled jobs or non-skilled people who don't have skills, as it were, but just China provided for it. And the reason this irregular migration has become the order of the day, even with the risk that it portends, we've seen videos of ship capsizing, balloons in form of ship taking long distance stretch on the Mediterranean. And we've seen people capsize on the Mediterranean and go down below sea. We've seen people eaten up by these aquatic animals in the Mediterranean. It's not enough warning, because the truth of the matter is that some of them consider such risk as better than living here where they're from. Because essentially every day here, the only thing that may not befall you is that unexplained death might not befall you here. But there are other ways that you could be killed here, 1,001 ways you could be killed here. So for them, it's easier for them to determine their path taking such risk. And if it pays off, it becomes a risk that paid off than to remain here where there is essentially no hope, abject poverty, no future in sight, as it were. Anywhere around the Mediterranean, any way to get around it, an African person, a Nigerian, an Edo person, we've been statistically of a higher number of those that have taken this risk across Nigeria. We'll be seen to take this risk again and again because the life here doesn't promise anything. And this is a reminder of the failure of government, a reminder of the fact that we've not done the needful at giving these young ones hope. We've not given them a reason to hold on to life, to even value their own lives. You see why, again, the crime level here is bad. Because if you can't value your own life, if you take this kind of risk, knowing full well that you may not come back alive, you may not even get to destination, then if you make up your mind not to, the other option available to you is crime and criminality and all evil intents just to make a living, just to make ends meet. And this is not peculiar to the African people. People all over the world, the human person, there's first law on his thinking is survival. If in the West, if they are confronted with the same circumstances and situations as we are confronted with here, I tell you, they will do just about this or do worse. Because improving the lives of people has to be a deliberate thing. It has to be something you're intentional about as government. You have to start a process that an expectation is expected of by the end of the tunnel. We have not built for our children. If we look at it critically, for all that you see, for these lives that have been lost, if any person will take the blame shamefully, are those that we've entrusted with our common patrimony, those who are entrusted with leadership space. They all go there and speak English. They all go there and work for their children. The recent elections will prove that a governor of a state like Abia would say that for all he cares, all he has achieved, he has brought dominoes to his people. I mean, we're living in a country where we're not measuring the performance of government, given the improvement in the lives of the people. We're still looking at structural improvements as a way of measuring the lives of the people. If by infrastructural developments alone, any African states to be measured, we will come short. But when it comes to human capacity development, we're nowhere. We've not put anything in place to make sure this kind of risk is not taken in the future. So what you're seeing today is glory days for me. The days ahead is worse because the poverty level and the hopelessness is getting its roots by the day.
All right, the program is still African Discourse on independent television. Now, for viewers out there, we are going to let you see this video footage for a very long time so that you see the situation for yourself. When we say irregular migration, and of course the way youths, the African youths, the way they take the risk upon themselves, upon their lives, this is the way it looks like. Now, for quite some time, we've not seen this kind of scenario. Only some few weeks ago now, it appears that the thing is regenerating. And we probably don't understand why the situation is like this. Now, Mr. Okungbowa, let me come to you one more time. A while ago, you talked about that this is probably as a result of bad governance on the continent of Africa. Yeah. Bad governance in some countries. You know, I don't want to be specific now, but you and I know, irrespective of that bad governance, we still have some youth. Take, for example, like you. You've not gone anywhere. You decided to own businesses here as an African. So are you saying that it's been that rosy for you? So what is that thing that you saw that that African youth out there is probably not seeing?
Mr. Evans, I would not use myself as a standard in this case because we're all built differently. The circumstances in their lives that made them to take such risk, knowing fully well that in the end they may not triumph, may not have been in the exact same circumstance that presented itself in my life. I've had my share of these, downward sides of life.
You've been through the Mediterranean before?
No, not through the Mediterranean. I think I've been through worse than the Mediterranean. I mean, in the manner of speaking. I do not know if it's possible for you to even fathom that as I'm seated here with you, I once picked food to eat in the floor in this Benin. How we make food in our home back then was me and my twin brother taking very extreme measures. He takes a sack of motor bag, follows this side of the road. I go the other way on IC Road, opposite Baptist High School. What were we looking for? In your dustbins, the head of yam you peeled and threw off. We were lucky enough to find the one that was not properly excised and a lot of fleshy yam attached to the head. We bring it home. Bags of it, we bring it home. And we repeal again just to make pottage. I've been through worse than the Mediterranean. Yet, I will not judge these people. Because in the end, there are those whom God have entrusted with the responsibility to cater for this larger number. The concept of the utilitarian doctrine only makes sense for the greater good when the few who are in position of power remember that there are majority who cannot access power, and therefore they are accountable and accountable to them. Not until we become that kind of leader, not until that kind of leadership is enthroned in our space. I can't use myself as an example. I started off in Benin here. When I started looking out for my own way of earning money, being born in a very poor home, the option I had was internet fraud. But I couldn't do it because I had a conscience, you know. So I started teaching. And from that teaching, God prospered it. But can everybody teach? Is every person who will have the initiative to teach? Even if the initiative to teach comes from them, do they have the wherewithal to teach? Is everybody's calling teaching? I'm a teacher naturally. That is why I believe that the best teacher is one who understands what he's teaching first of all. I have to come to the understanding of why these people will take a risk like this. And I can never use myself as a standard. But I will keep using those who are in charge of our common patrimony as those who have failed them. Because if the artisanship here even pays by reason of economic revamp, by reason of handwork, some of them have no reason going abroad. But even with handwork, the reason some of them still go abroad is the economic scale. It will pay me better to even walk in the streets. It will pay me better to even do menial jobs abroad than remain here in the name of white-collar job, or even the menial job here. Those people who have remained here to face the situation, as it were, if they had all it took to go abroad, trust me, they will not remain. So some of them might have gone through this route. There are those who went through the proper route. The question is still, irregular or regular? There's a migration that is killing Africa. There is a migration that is killing Nigeria. The quality of our workforce is living here every day in search of greener pastures. The doctors are living in their numbers. The nurses are living in their numbers. Even the unskilled laborers are living in their numbers. Okay.
All right. So, the PD, we are going to be seeing more images. We have some images for you so that you continue to see when we say irregular migration in Africa, so that you continue to see. These are some of the images now that we have, the way it looks like. You find Nigerian children, Nigerian youths, African youths, you know, migrating to the Europe, to the Western world through the Mediterranean Sea. And we've been able to say here, just like what Mr. Okumbo is saying now, that it is as a result of the situation back home. Now, Mr. Okumbo, let's look at another factor, because I always like judging from my environment, my milieu, my immediate environment now, so that I can use it to postulate into what is probably happening. Now, in Benin, where I stay, I don't know if you've noticed it now, it's almost an acceptable norm that not until you have a particular person, you know, from a particular home, a particular household outside the country, some might maybe consider that that family has not arrived. Don't you think this is also a factor that make the African youth, the Nigerian youth, you know, to want to take the highest risk of his life?
Well, in as much as that has played its own role, but I think that has been mitigated for the past 15 to 20 years. It's not as bad as it used to be. It was that bad when my generation were little children. It would seem as though back then, if you hadn't a family abroad, you are not even a human being. Back then, in quotes, the Akates used to have the space, as it were. You know, during December, you see them come back with flashy cars, vehicles with open roofs. You see them dressed really nice. And the guys here just couldn't measure up. They couldn't come close. And I'll tell you what has mitigated that, to speak freely. It's fraud, internet fraud. The ones who are abroad, working, doing menial jobs and stuff, can't live the kind of life those who have engaged in criminality live here. And all is to say one thing. Even the guy you now call a fraudster, who is involved in internet fraud, many of them don't like what they do. It's that there's no option. I was in the UK last year and discovered
when
that...
you say there's no option, don't you... because you had an option.
The option I had was a space I created.
Why can't others create that space too?
The 682 persons that are in my employ, could they create space for themselves? Not every person has the wherewithal to create a space. That is why we go back again to those who have the common patrimony. I, on a private scale, have created jobs for 682 persons.
Now, you worked for some people before.
I'm just one person, sir. The truth of the matter is that the labor force is larger than the force of leadership anywhere in the world. Even in the UK and America that you see as standards today, those who are laborers are more in population than those who occupy seats of the capitalists or government. The point is that by reason of policy, what do you have to engage the larger number of people? I'll give you a dynamics so you know what we've done to ourselves by enthroning bad governance in the past. From 1999 to date, we've had 24 years of no quality life for the African person, of economic backwardness for Nigerian people, amidst the whole of the economic wealth that God deposited in this country. Just imagine that 24 years ago, we had a government, like in Dubai, that would harness, sell to the international community and take care of their people. An average Emirati does not need a job to survive abroad. It doesn't need a job. In the UK, you don't need a job to survive. Healthcare is free. Education is free.
But you cannot say so that you really don't need a job to survive.
In quotes, sir.
But the tides are changing now.
In quotes, sir, because what they have in the UK, the entire UK is less than 70 million population. What they have in the UK and what they have in Dubai combined is not up to half of what we have in Nigeria. So if we had a purposeful government for the past 24 years, we would not be where we are today. And any child born today would only need 5 administrations.
But that is not the situation in all the African countries. We have 1 or 2 countries, whether you like it or not now. Rwanda has picked up. We also understand South Africa has been on the late for
I like
quite
the
some
example
time.
you just made. The Rwanda case you just referred to was only because of Paul Kagame. That's a leader who was visionary, a leader who had a
Now,
purpose.
the reason why I'm saying this now, if you, if we were to do a sample of most of the youths you are looking on the screen now, most of them are from Nigeria, they are from some other West African countries. Hardly you find South Africans, hardly you find
Rwandans.
Rwandese, you understand, migrating. These are Nigerians now. Those are the last set of people that came to Nigeria.
And what does that tell you?
sometime
In the face of what you just mentioned, this country, for the past 10 years, have been showing trappings of countries that are ready to get it right with leadership and get it right with economics. Everything boiled down to the economic scale. Rwanda, for example, under the leadership of Paul Kagame, has risen from that dust of 1994 to a country that's to be reckoned with today. They became the first country in Africa to make a cell phone. And amidst other technological advancements.
And all this centers on the youth.
Thank you. Now, where I was going to, in terms of population, Nigeria has what the world is looking for, young people. How are we putting these young people to use? If Rwanda has the population that Nigeria has, Rwanda will be better off for it today because they found a leadership that works for them. In Kenya, for example, they found a leadership that works for them. In Nigeria, we just keep perpetually repeating the same scale of people, the same category and class of people who are visionless, who don't have a purpose for us all. And like I mentioned, give birth to a child today. It will take 5 men to complete 2 terms in office to screw the life of that child. Because when those 5 men or women are done with 2 tenures each, 40 years would have been wasted of that child's life. So for a guy like me who is just about 40, if you successfully put another 5 men or women who have no vision or purpose for me in office, when those 5 persons leave, I'll be 80 years old. My life is gone before me because people who couldn't make policies to change my life have been in leadership space and position. So it all still boils down to those we've entrusted with our common patrimony. These people who are risking their life, their bloods are on them. I know very well, I'm quite religious to know that God will require their bloods from them. Because before they take this kind of risk, it took a lot. A number of them left wife and children at home. A number of them left unborn babies in the womb. They kissed their wife's stomach and beat their child unborn. Farewell. I hope to see you again. I hope to be responsible for that. I hope to take care of you. But I'm going to go take a risk. And that risk may not pay off. I may not come back where the things he didn't tell his child. But the unsung heroes in all of these are these people who are wasting away. In the presence of the economic scale of this country, I call them heroes. Because if you repatriate them back home today, what do you have for them? They will only just find their way back. It takes a courage for a man to go and face death in the name of taking care of his children, sir. It takes courage to go face this kind of risk in the name of taking care of your children. Is that this is the highest display of love, care, and affection for your family.
Yeah, when you say so that when you deport them back, good enough to the European governments now. Now, what we are seeing now is actually a rescue boat. A rescue boat. Okay, the one that they are falling from now is, they call it La Palapa now.
Yeah, we know about those.
Now, somehow, at times, we do have a rescue ship that comes around to pick them and take them to neighboring European countries, put them in refugee camps and all that. That is what probably gives them the mindset now that, look, when we get into the middle of the Mediterranean Sea, certainly we're going to find some help. But don't you also think that has been a kind of a problem rather than being a solution now? Because if these African youths, if they know that help is not necessarily going to come, okay, like what you have, that's the bigger vessel now. That's the bigger vessel. You see them climbing into the bigger vessel from the the boat down. So what I'm saying is that if these African youths now do now have, they don't have the knowledge that they are not going to have help necessarily, don't you think that we've somehow discouraged them?
I do not want to speak of what I don't know of exactly, but you're already thinking in a direction that some of us are already thinking in, because in the end, these risks are not something that is to be explained. They are visible risks.
And it doesn't want it.
They are visible risks people are taking.
Yeah.
And why is it that a lot of persons still go on that path? Yeah, something might be chasing them from their home, but something is encouraging them in the Mediterranean or after the Mediterranean or just beside the Mediterranean. For me, I know of a young guy who has built his house to completion, and he took this risk, landed somewhere around Germany where he was put in a refugee camp and was being paid for being in the refugee camp. And from the
Are you applauding that guy?
I'm just coming, sir.
Yeah, yeah.
And from the money he was receiving from the refugee camp, he bought a land here in Benin and started building a house. The point is that I think this is a way to depopulate Africa. Let them kill themselves in the Mediterranean. Those who will succeed, few of them.
Who is doing that now?
I don't want to mention, but I think that from time immemorial, from the histories available to us, the white man has really not essentially meant
But
well
it's
for
still
the
the white
black
man that is rescuing them now. The rescue vessel you are seeing now, you're watching, is
and
from
if there is
some
no
of
need,
these,
if there is no need,
migration
if there is no rescue, if there is no succor, if there is no refugee camp where you are paid for taking this risk, people will not take the risk. Action and reaction are both equal and opposite. Most of these things, I see them like scripts. Because in the end, these people have found themselves in this situation. Would you just leave them to rot without showing concern or showing an attempt to care? But the dynamics that encourages it, are you not part of it? I'm one of those persons who will never give beggars on the street my money. You know why? Is it because they don't need it? No. They have hands, they have legs, they are full-grown human beings, and they could take on something to do, and yet they're on the street begging. And the reason why they remain there is because perhaps you and people like you will give them.
Just the same way we are talking about this African
That's what we're
now.
saying. But I don't give because I soon realize that giving them is enabling them to continue in this same act of condemnation.
All right, now, so let's take a pause now, because we'll have to take a pause now so that we get to watch the headlines on the time. Don't forget the program is still African Discourse. Very, very interesting here today. We are discussing a major problem on the continent of Africa, the way African youths, migrate irregularly to Europe and Western world. We'll be right back after this time out. Please stay tuned. All right, thank you so much. The program Stay here on Independent Television. African Discourse is what we call it. And we'll look at issues on the African continent. Today we are looking at irregular migration in Africa. And of course, the African youth in focus. We still have Mr. Paul Okungbowa here, an African youth, somebody that has not taken to the option of taking one of those boats we saw a while ago to go to Europe. Now, Mr. Paul Okungbowa, you're welcome one more time.
Thank you.
You talked about the effects now, the disadvantage you may want to say now that we are beginning to experience. For quite some time it's been on. We'll talk about the brain drain as it relates to irregular migration. Now, you are in the business of educating people, maybe to get from the secondary level to the tertiary level and all that. Yeah. Now, it will still surprise you to know that after the tertiary education, you still have most African youth. They still want to take this risk. Sure. After the secondary tertiary education, is it that there is still no hope, even after you have acquired that kind of education? Let's pick it up from there.
I have a friend who is an academic star, I like to say. He's a senior lecturer in the University of Benin. He's leaving the country in another 2 or 3 days with his family. The truth of the matter is that...
A lecturer?
Yes, but a number of them have left already. Because the job, the work he does here, the output is not compared to what he puts in terms of remuneration.
The remuneration now.
In terms of the quality of life he's living by virtue of his knowledge and by virtue of his person. And so... somebody who does a menial job in a place like UK is living better than him here.
When you say quality of life now, Mr. Okungbowa, is it necessarily better over there? I mean, these guys become second-class citizens.
Oh, Mr. Evans, I'll tell you because
I've
been there. I'll tell you it's a lot better than here.
Really?
Yes, as second-class citizens, nobody treats you as such until you treat yourself as such. If you stay away from crime and do the job that you've been assigned to do, you get paid for it. You live the kind of life that most Nigerians cannot live. On my way to Manchester, there was a little accident on the road, wherein before I knew what was going on, the road was barricaded, and then a helicopter had to come down to pick this black immigrant student to the hospital. I was telling my friend, I just wonder how much this guy's going to spend for medical care. And he said it's free of charge. Everything you just saw happening now, it's free of charge. The country is structured that way, to medically take care of their people for free, even cancer care for free. In the UK, in public places, before you are given the right to run business in public places, you must provide internet free of charge. You get me? Those are people you might want to say have come to a point in development. Africans, Nigerians who are yet to get to that point of development are charging for these things. Here in Nigeria, education is not free. From nursery school to primary school to the university, it's not free. And yet, we intend to grow this country on the basis of the knowledge that the youth is to get. What is the quality of the knowledge we're even giving to the youth? I was speaking somewhere this morning where I told people that the knowledge base, the knowledge, core knowledge of the Nigeria society today will essentially make you a slave and a seeker of job, not an employer of labor. Because all the courses we're studying in our Nigerian universities hardly translate to you becoming an employer of labor. It actually means that you get out of the school with a certificate and you start looking for a job.
Yeah, but when you say so, most universities now will have entrepreneurship programs and all that. So
those entrepreneurship program is just in a manner to speak about it or just to add it to curriculum. Actively speaking, there are a lot of these professions that are gaining grants in the West that are not taught in our universities. I dare to say that the University of Benin Computer Science Department is not prepared for 10 years ago. It's not prepared for 20 years ago, not to mention future. In the University of Benin, they still teach Pascal and Fortran of 1990.
Well, you are not there, so we cannot...
I have, that is why I say I get to say they can challenge me.
You don't work there.
Now, what I'm telling you is that in the UK, when I was in the UK, I discovered that data analysis and some other courses was what the world needed today. And they are ready to pay you to do the job of a data analyst. But it doesn't say that you are qualified in paper qualification. They want to know what we always say here, the certificates.
The certificates.
What you could do. And if you could actually get this knowledge and put it out there, you'll be paid for it. My friend in the UK brought a job for the other friend I was staying with in Liverpool, a job that will pay him £450 a day. That's an average of 440,000 naira a day. Do you know he didn't have the requisite skill for it? Because the friend we went to see in Manchester was the HR of the company, who is now interested in outsourcing jobs of that sort to Nigeria. And he has sent me back to come and train Nigerians on these skills, that if he remotely trains them and certify that they are good at it, instead of taking these jobs to Asia, America, and India, he will give it to them. That's the Simba technology that came with me. I didn't go there to take picture with the queen or the king. I didn't go there to take picture in the street. I went there to look at for what our people lack. But listen, the government of the day, they make these trips on a daily basis even to exaggerate it. How is it they can import ideas that can improve lives of people here? Do you think these people you are seeing on the screen now, if they got a training in data analysis and other things that pay them, and they get a way to outsource jobs remotely abroad, like other people are doing, you think they will take this risk? Okay,
now let's look at something else now, because some persons have also said that it is the balance in foreign exchange that you know, is one factor that is responsible for this kind of risk that African youths embark upon. Take, for example, somebody that somebody that works for like 15 hours a day and is paid for like, let's say $15 per hour. You put that together 15 times, you know, 15 hours times $15. That's a huge amount of money when you bring it out to Naira. Now, let's look at it. Don't you think that the African leaders, they need to look at all this? That, look, we have a great problem as it relates to, you know, balance in foreign exchange and all that, so that at the end of the day, youths will not be taking this kind of risk that they're embarking upon now.
So you know what, one of the reasons why our case is almost looking like hopeless is that it takes one man to make policy for the rest of us. And if that man is not forward thinking, if he's not smart, if he doesn't know what to do, he will just be repeating the ways of his fathers.
But we all voted for that man.
The truth of the matter is,
we all vote for who makes the policies.
The truth of the matter is that not until this past election, Nigerians never had a reason to vote. Nigerians always voted for the most popular in terms of cash, the most expensive, who could afford their certain needs, the one who seeming like has the panache to even win the election. In Nigeria before today, you will not be voted even if you have what it takes to lead, because the people don't think you can muster through the corridors of power, because the way to power here is essentially compromise. Now, those who could, they can easily get it. It took one man to redefine that political landscape, and we're hoping that in the coming elections in it, they will follow that trajectory, wherein the campaign now matters, wherein the manifesto would matter, no longer a party structure.
And even the candidates too.
Yes, and the quality of the life of the individual, because you can't give what you do not have. You can't give what you don't have. The quality of the life of the individual will now also matter. Absent of that, I am telling you that if in the leadership space, The man who can make a policy for your children, my children, and the unborn children is not enthroned, will keep repeating this cycle. So the brain drain issue, the lack of workforce in Nigeria today, you go to, I think very recently, the bricklayers, the masons, they've hiked up their cost of building, of you engaging them.
The economy has
because
also...
a good number, not just that, a good number of those who used to make the monopoly a bit reduced has left the country. When you go to most mechanic workshops now, you don't see the kekeres no more. You don't see the little boys who are learning no more. They've all joined Yahoo syndicates. They've all joined
and most
HK.
of them have all left.
Some of them have left through the same means too. So this is now telling you one thing. There is a gradual disruption in our workforce. Wherein Mr. Evans Enokogie here in the studio doing his bit for economic growth and advancement as a journalist will not be the guy who's supposed to be a bricklayer is not going to work for you. The guy who's supposed to be a mechanic will not be working for you. Because the few ones around want now to exploit those who are available, because majority of those who broke the monopoly for them are no longer around. We must begin to look inwards when it comes to policy making, when it comes to policies that are targeted at improving the quality of the lives of the people. I dare to say that the 1776 Bill of Rights of America thrives in the belief in the individual. Do you believe that this person can become a human being? This person can become the identity of the American state and all that makes the America what it is. This person is an embodiment of it. He's a reflection of it. And Nigerian leaders thinking in that direction, that we need to raise children who will be a reflection of our future, a reflection of our past. If that is the case, when you speak about the curriculum for school today, the curriculum in our school system today, is it targeted at building people to become employers of labor in the future? Yeah. No. Is it targeted at making them better human beings? No. Because in the end, Karl Marx was correct in 1818 when he postulated, between 1818 and 1889, when he postulated that the economic order will always control the social order. Today, that is interpreted as stomach infrastructure.
All right, so as we try to draw the conclusion now on this program, let's begin to speak to the youths now. That you want to travel to overseas, you want to travel abroad, which is not bad after all. But the method and, of course, the way you embark upon that matters a lot. Because at the end of the day, this brings some very, it brings some very sad story. A lot of youth on the continent of Africa have really left home, and their parents have not heard from them for a very long time. True. And, of course, a lot of them have even died in the Mediterranean, the Sahara Desert and all that. And, of course, no fillers from this youth. So that's a great loss. I mean, you have a child that has gone to the primary school, secondary school, and of course the university, only for that child to want to travel to abroad. He wants to travel abroad, and of course you never hear from that child again. Now, Mr. Okumbowa, you know, your responsibility here this morning, this afternoon rather, is very huge. A lot of persons are looking up to you. I want you to look straight into that camera and, you know, just talk to the youth that, look, these things, it doesn't worth it. Talk to the African youth, talk to the Nigerian youth that it doesn't worth it. You've got some very great potentials here. Even if we are saying that the conditions of ground are not encouraging. If persons like you can make it here, don't you think other Africans out there can make it? Don't you think so?
In the class of the human being, we are universal. The human beings abroad and those here just have just one difference, color difference. Every other thing is completely the same. Yeah. The truth of the matter is that for those who want to leave, this concept that is being promoted now about Japa syndrome. No. The truth is that even those who left here to school, which seems to be the easiest way to live here, the UK government is structured such that they won't even be able to remain. After the school is done, they're going to find their ways back. Those who zero in everything.
But we also have the narrative that, you know, the white men, so they said now, an allegation now.
There is what they call a post-study visa.
Not even the post-study visa.
There's what they call a post-study visa in the UK.
We have another narrative that once you are trained there, once you school there, that they don't even want you to come back home. They want you to use that education for them. Mr.
Evans, that could be true some 10 years ago. It's no longer true. Because the truth of the matter now is that why the many comes in, they'll filter the few that they need. The rest will have to go back. The rest cannot depend on the UK system and depend on the UK government. And begin now, before you know what's going on, a xenophobic issue will arise over there, where the blacks are now taking over in terms of population.
In the UK?
There was a video that circulated on social media last week, wherein a class was completely dominated by Nigerians. The teacher reading out the names of students supposedly to get their attention, kept reading out names like Ola, Davis, Michael, Binobaro. You know, it was a complete black affair. Do you think those people there are not offended?
But that school gave them the admission.
Because that is their way of taking from us. Do you know how much we contribute to the economy of the United Kingdom courtesy of the academic visa we keep seeking on a yearly basis? You know how much you contribute to their system? It's quite huge. So when you are done, because they know you came in not just to study, but to depend on the system, they prepared the system such that you are paying a staggering £12,000 per child that you are brought into the UK to remain in the UK after finishing your course of study. So it's not just enough that you finish. If you're lucky enough to get employed, and your employment is just your employment letter could be for 3 years or 5 years, you could stay for that period subject to renewal. There's no perpetual stay.
And most of them seek other avenues to stay. They marry citizens there and they stay. And
that is now something that young Nigerians who are married now do to stay there. It's not an ideal thing to do. In fact, in the UK today, they could prove fraud in your marriage and still get into you through that same marriage you claim and give you a legitimacy in the United Kingdom. The truth of the matter is that even for those who have gone abroad for education in hopes to stay there and all of that, they are going to find their way back to this same country we are running away from. The best option is still to make here heaven for them. An average Emirati does not look forward to going abroad. In Kuwait, where their currency is higher than the US dollar, they don't look forward to going abroad because the whole thing boiled down to money. And
even in South Africa too,
the whole thing boiled down to the value. The value of,
in Kenya,
yes, the value of the currency versus the US dollar, versus the pounds, as it were. An Emirati has the kind of life that he or she cannot even get abroad.
Because the system works.
Because the system works. Yeah. And this Dubai that we're all running to, good enough they banned us, that we're all running to, does not have anything where we are. Nigeria is the 6th largest producer of oil. Nigeria has the 2nd largest deposit of gas after Russia. The natural resources that are bound here that are still untapped would only mean one thing: a purposeful leadership is all that we need to correct this misnomer.
And of course, a purposeful youth too is all that we need.
Thank you. We've also bastardized the level of followership here because everything has been weaponized for the sake of election. Thuggery has been weaponized, religion has been weaponized, ethnicity has been weaponized, religion has been weaponized, tribalism has been weaponized. All the things that should bind us together has been weaponized for the sake of leadership choice. We saw some things that played out in the elections that just passed. My worry is that the quality of the beings here, the quality of the human beings here is so low that I do not know what future we have as a people.
Anyway, we cannot say that the future does not have so much for us as Africans. I do believe that the future has a lot for us. So we must take advantage of that and also, key into so many opportunities that lies in Africa here. There are so many opportunities, even right here in Benin, where you stay.
That is true.
So many opportunities.
In fact, my final words to the youths, if I have to speak, is that if you look inwards mostly, you will realize that the Bible was correct when it said you should not despise the days of little beginning.
Yeah.
I started business with 5,000 that was given to me by Professor Ms. Fufeyin. She was the HOD of Animal and Environmental Biology about when I started in 2005.
2005?
Yes. That became like a monster seed. Has it been all easy and rosy? No. I could not afford a car until about 11 years after I started doing business. And when I was thinking about a car I bought at Tokumbo level, maybe fourth hand or third hand or second hand, that I was able to buy. But I was consistent. The problem with most of our youth is lack of patience. And all of this is also symptomatic of a future that they cannot see. Because it's a future that you can see. An athlete that embarks on a race is only on that track even when he or she is tired because he's seeing the glory at the finish line.
And of course, sometimes parents are influenced too. Most of these African youths, their parents,
When it comes to the economic scale, the parents have little or no influence these days. It's government policies that matters now.
It's not even the economic scale now. We're talking about parents, urging children that, like, hey, go and look at your mates. They are no more home.
Even if the parent does not actively encourage them, the children are already encouraged by those who are making it through those means. In fact, there are still parents now who are trying to fight their children off such ways. They are not proud of them. But there is no option that they can give to those children of theirs. So in the absence of an option, you're inadvertently telling that child to go on. So most parents have learned to keep quiet because even the government of the day is not responsible enough to do something in the direction of giving them options. There are opportunities that are bound. When you could be in Nigeria here and work remotely abroad. You'll be working from the comfort of your office.
Your home,
but one of the problems we even have is the internet available here is so slow that you cannot even do
and
the work abroad, except maybe you are directly connected to some sites or some internet programs over there. So we have not even begun to look at certain things that could set a standard for our young people. First, we must begin to teach them the kind of things that they can live on. Not just to acquire knowledge for the sake of knowledge itself. Is that knowledge becomes a means to an end. A means to an end. Not just an end in itself. So when knowledge becomes a means to an end, the question is, why am I even studying this course? Is it my passion that wants to live out here, or that I am looking for money here? Whichever question is interrogated at this level, it's fine for us, so long as it's a means to an end. The education we're acquiring here in Nigeria is not a means to an end. It's almost an end in itself, wherein as you are done with that paper qualification, there is nothing else waiting for you.
All right, so I want to say a very big thank you to you, Mr. Paul Okungbowa, for finding time to come on the show today. And we'll keep on talking, and we'll keep on speaking to the issues. All these are issues on the continent of Africa, most especially as it relates to the youth. I told you a while ago that the United Nations and even African Union, the West African Union too, has also tried to ensure that they discourage the way African youths pass through the Mediterranean. Thousands of youths die, on annual basis in an attempt to cross the Mediterranean to go to the Western world. And this is not encouraging. We're talking about lives here. We're talking about, lives that is supposed to be of great advantage to Africans, as it were, to Africa as a continent, as it were. And of course, there they are, they die in their thousands, year in, year out. Well, we just hope that all this will stop, and so that we can begin to develop our country and also develop our continent. A very big thank you one more time for finding time to come on the show. All right, so on to the same time on the same program next week. My name is Evan Sunohuge. Goodbye and God bless you.